So let's dive into electric health. Like this sounds very interesting. So what do you mean by electric health?
Yeah, so I think that, most people get that different parts of their body are electric, right? If you get an EKG, it's measuring the electrical activity of your heart. If you get an EEG, it's measuring the electrical activity of your brain. We understand that our blood carries a charge. Some of us know that our bones are actually crystalline structures that make electricity when they're compressed. A lot of information has been coming out lately about how fascia transfers electrical energy. So I think that what is going on is that we've been kind of missing the forest from the trees, because when we step back and we look at the human body, there is an underlying electrical system. And that electrical juice, whether our light is on or our light is off, is the determinant about whether we're alive or not. When we die, and our light goes out, that's because the electric aspect of our body has departed.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's an interesting way of looking at it. So, how did you get into this line of work before we dive into, more around electric health? Like, I'm just curious, what brought you to this line of work?
So I had a part-time massage therapy practice, and I'm a researcher by nature. I like to read a lot, and I've read many thousands of books and all kinds of stuff. Really sort of a big information sponge, especially in the fields of health, human potential, science and spirituality, all that kind of stuff. And so I was reading books at that time about the use of color and sound and music, basically vibrational healing. And it made a lot of sense to me, because I'd come across like Deepak Chopra saying, everything is vibration, everything appears solid, but it's really vibration. And I was like, well, if everything is fundamentally vibration, we're fundamentally vibration, then treating vibration with vibration just makes sense. Seems like, elegant. Mm-hmm. So I found, after reading all these books, and there weren't many in the mid 90s, I found a set of tuning forks for healing in a Gaiam catalog and just bought them on impulse. And I started to play with them in my massage therapy practice and really started making all kinds of interesting observations. And people were reporting therapeutic outcomes. And this is Connecticut in the mid 90s. And if I told anybody that I was doing tuning fork healing, they're balancing their chakras, there was a very predictable, skeptical response about that. That really troubled me. And so I just kept it as a hobby for a really long time. But then what ended up happening 10 years into this of doing, just a few here and there out of curiosity's sake more than anything. And I was in a different industry altogether. I was in the food industry. And I started to make discoveries. I'd been just working over the body. But then I started discovering that there was phenomena going on around the body, basically in the body's atmosphere. I started discovering all kinds of like sonic anomalies as I was passing a tuning fork through this environment around the body. In some places it felt like the tuning fork, when it was moving slowly towards the body, that it would actually hit something like a patch of resistance. Like it felt like stuff, and it felt like it didn't want to move. And if I stayed there with it and kind of broke it up, then I could actually move it with a tuning fork like you would use a magnet to move iron filings. It was so bizarre. And I was like, what is this stuff that I'm encountering? Like, what is it? And what law of physics is determining the fact that I can move this stuff with a vibrating tuning fork? It was so confusing. And what was even more confusing was when I started poking around in the field and started moving things around. I'd find like a loud stuck spot, and I would like move it to the midline of the body. It would feel like it got sucked into the body. And then the person would look lighter and brighter. And then they would say, wow, I feel better. And that was really strange, right? I mean, it was just so strange. So when I started getting these very dramatic therapeutic outcomes from people by moving stuff around in their field with a tuning fork, I realized that I was onto something, because I was treating people who had pain for years and it was going away in one session. I had people who had massive anxiety disorders. It was going away in just a few sessions. People, were saying their depression was lifted and this ailment was gone, and that, and it was like everybody wants relief from suffering in a way that's so non-invasive, and somebody waving a tuning fork over you and bang, your pain goes away. Like, that's pretty cool. But there was this image problem. And I realized that if I wanted to bring it out in the world to help people, which I felt like I needed to, it would be really helpful, one, if I understood what was going on, and two, if I had some degrees. And so I went to college as an adult and go as a youth. And between 2007 and 2012, I got my undergraduate and graduate degrees, and I wrote a master's thesis called Exploring the Effects of Audible Sound on the Human Body and its Biofield. And biofield is the key word here, because biofield is the scientific term for what we would call, what others might call the aura or the human energy field, and what I have come to see as the body's electrical system in its sum totality.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a fun story. Interesting to, especially the parts about, right. Having the tools and then seeing the stuck parts and being able to like kind of unpack that and discover that mystery. That's really cool.